The whole trouble with my grandmother Della was that she would not throw anything out, ever. And by the time we are done here, neither will you. Let me show you why. In 1932, Della carried a wooden darning mushroom in the pocket of her house dress, like a piece of jewellery. It was the colour of dark honey, worn smooth by 40 years of stockings, and Della's mother had bought it at Kinney's General Store on Main Street in Tipton, Indiana, for 15 cents in 1892. She would not have thrown it out if the house caught fire, and if you sat with her at that kitchen table on County Road 6 for 1 hour, you would understand every one of the 30 oddly useful things Della refused to throw away. Not the darning mushroom, not the button jar on the sill, not the tin of lemon rinds drying above the wood stove, not the sheets gone thin down the middle after 20 years of 2 people sleeping on them. Now, a Depression kitchen looks to modern eyes like a woman making do because she could not afford new. That is exactly backwards. Della could afford new better than most of us can because she never once bought the same thing twice. On County Road 6 outside Tipton, she ran a whole household economy on what a modern American house throws in the bin every week. Stay for number 12. 3 cents of it beats a $4 can of brass polish, and I will show you the arithmetic. Number 3 is the tailor's trick that gives a wool suit an extra decade, and I will tell you which USDA bulletin printed it in 1943. And number 1, I will tell you plain right now, is the single habit that ends your linen bill. So pull your chair in close, sweetheart. I'm going to show you the arithmetic on every one of these, and by the end, you will not look at your own trash can the same way again. My promise is the same as always. Spend less, waste nothing, and keep the kitchen wisdom the supermarket would rather you forget. Grab your coffee. We are starting at number 30. 30. The scrap tin above the work table. Della kept a small biscuit tin on the shelf above her work table, and every time a new wool coat came through the door, a 2-inch snippet of the cloth went into that tin. Same for a new dress. Same for a curtain. She never explained why. She did not have to. The day my Uncle Ray tore the sleeve of his good grey suit at a barn dance in 1948, she opened the tin, found the snippet the tailor had left with the suit 6 years earlier, and darned a patch so clean you could not find it with your finger. Every Woman's Encyclopedia printed the whole invisible patch trade in 1910, and it all rested on one biscuit tin. Hold on to that tin, because it pays off again at number 2. And it is not the only thing on Della's shelves earning its keep twice. The next one she guarded like the church offering plate. 29. The coffee grounds from breakfast. Not one coffee ground ever went down Della's drain, and she would tap you on the shoulder if she caught you trying. Every morning's grounds went into a small enamel bowl by the sink, and by afternoon they had 2 jobs. First, into the tomato bed at the corner of the garden, worked in around the base of each plant, feeding the soil back what the season had pulled out of it. Second, a handful mixed with a drop of dish soap turned into a mild scouring paste for the black cast iron skillet. It lifted the burnt bits without stripping the seasoning. The Wednesday morning coffee did 3 jobs before it left the house. Waste is only a word for a household that asks a thing to do one thing. 28. The bacon grease from Sunday breakfast. Every Sunday, Della fried bacon in the same cast iron skillet she had used since 1926. When the bacon came out, the fat went not down the drain, but into a ceramic drippings crock on the back of the stove, strained through a square of clean cotton cloth to catch the crumbs. That grease ran the whole week's cooking. Cornbread, fried potatoes, the base of a bean pot that fed 6 on a 15-cent bag of navy beans. She never bought a container of shortening in her life, and the crock had one more job. A spoonful greased the hinges of the pantry door, silent as a Sunday morning. 1 breakfast, 4 kitchens, no receipt. The store sells you back your own drippings in a can with a picture of a farmhouse on the label. 27. The brown paper grocery bags. Every paper bag got folded flat and laid under the sink, tied off with a length of twine. They had 5 jobs in Della's kitchen: wrapping sandwiches for my grandfather to take to the sawmill, lining the bottom of the bread box so the crumbs came out in a single sheet, wrapping vegetable trimmings for the compost bucket so the fruit flies did not come in through the screen door, laid 2 sheets over a grease spot on a wool jacket and pressed with a warm iron. The paper wicked the grease clean out of the wool. The same principle as the cornstarch trick coming up at number 16. And cut into strips, they made kindling for the wood stove. 5 jobs out of a bag the store threw at you for free. And that twine holding them together? Della had a rule about string, and it is the next thing on the shelf. 26. The ball of butcher's string in the top drawer. In the top drawer of the kitchen dresser sat a ball of butcher's string, and every time a package came into the house tied with twine, Della untied it slowly, wound the twine onto the ball, and put the ball back. She never once cut a knot. The ball reached the size of my grandfather's fist by the winter of 1936, and by the spring of 1937 it had tied up tomato plants in the garden, hung strips of apple to dry in the pantry above the wood stove, and bound the back of a broken wooden chair while she waited for the glue to set. A ball of string is a length of possibility, and a modern kitchen has stopped keeping possibility around. You buy it back by the foot for $2 and change. 25. The empty tins along the back porch shelf. Cocoa tins, coffee tins, tobacco tins from my grandfather's pipe. Della kept every one of them, washed and dried, along the back porch shelf. They held the button jar, roofing nails from the barn, 10-penny nails from the shed, a stash of pennies for the church basket, dried beans she had shelled the previous fall, and 1 specific tin for the soap slivers I will tell you about at number 17. The old encyclopedias called it a place for everything. Della called it a shelf, and let the shelf do the work. A cocoa tin cost nothing, and it will outlive the both of us. And 1 tin on that shelf held the thing she prized above nails or pennies. 24. The button jar on the kitchen sill. Every button that came off a garment in Della's house went into a wide-mouthed glass jar on the kitchen sill. Every button off a shirt too far gone to mend went in too, cut off before the shirt hit the rag pile. She never once in 53 years of housekeeping bought a card of buttons at the notions counter. When my Aunt Ruth needed a replacement for a shirt cuff in the winter of 1959, Della held the shirt up to the sill, tilted the jar in the winter sun, and pulled out 3 brown horn buttons off a coat that had gone to the rag bag in 1941. Match found. Sewed on in 9 minutes. A card of matching buttons runs $4 at the fabric store, and they still will not match. 23. The glass jars from every store-bought thing. Mayonnaise jars, mustard jars, pickle jars, peanut butter jars. Della washed every one clean, checked the seal on the lid, and put them along a shelf in the pantry that ran the whole east wall. Now let me say this plain. She did not can in these jars. Home canning goes in true canning jars, tested for the pressure and the acidity, or it goes in the bin. These were storage. Dried apples, split peas, coffee, cornmeal, salt, sugar, bacon grease strainings. A depression pantry held almost no packaging at all. Everything came out of the sack and into a jar with a written label. You already own $100 of glass storage containers. Della had hers for the price of a jar of mustard. 22. The Sunday newspaper. Della read the Sunday paper in the morning, and by Sunday night every sheet had a second job. Sheets on the kitchen floor before mopping to catch the drip from the mop. Sheets for washing windows, crumpled and wet with vinegar, which cleans glass better than any paper towel you can buy. Sheets folded into small squares under the cast iron skillet, absorbing the grease strip on the stovetop. Sheets in the bottom of the chicken coop, changed twice a week. And come November, sheets rolled into tight little logs, tied with the twine off the ball from number 26, and used as kindling in the wood stove. Paper towels run $22 for a case. The Sunday paper was 35 cents and came with the news. 21. The onion skins peeled from the last onion. The papery brown skins off every onion went into a small tin on the wood stove shelf, never the trash. And by the time she had 4 or 5 onions worth, they went into the stock pot. What comes out is a broth the colour of dark tea and full of a mild sweetness that plain water never gives you. She used it to start every soup, every stew, every pot of beans. And the handful of the same skins scattered around the base of the roses in the spring colours the soil and gives the roots a little of what they need. The store sells you the colour in a jar, labelled bone broth, for $8 a pint. The onion had it in the pantry the whole time. 20. The eggshells from every breakfast. Della crushed the shells in the palm of her hand and dropped them into 2 places. First into a clean tin on the sill, and once a week that tin went into the garden as calcium for the tomato bed. Second, into the dishwater. A handful of crushed shells at the bottom of a soapy sink scrubs a cast iron pan the way steel wool scrubs a soft one, and does not tear a hole in your dish rag. It is the mildest scouring agent in the kitchen, and it costs you exactly 1 breakfast. 19. The vegetable trimmings from every meal. Carrot tops, celery bottoms, the tough dark green tops off leeks, the papery ends of garlic, the dark stems off a bunch of parsley. All of it went into a lidded metal container in the cold cellar, and by the end of the week, Della had 2 quarts of vegetable trimmings for a stock pot. That pot fed the base of Wednesday soup, Friday's shepherd's pie gravy, and the pot of beans that ran Saturday night. A quart of vegetable broth runs $4 and change at the store. Della's cost her nothing but water and an hour of quiet simmer. You paid for these trimmings once at the checkout. Paying for the broth of them a second time is the part she could never understand. 18. The toothbrush passed its usefulness for teeth. A toothbrush in Della's house did not retire when it was done with teeth. It changed careers. Once the bristles softened past the job of a mouth, the brush went into a cocoa tin under the sink and took up new work, scrubbing the grout between kitchen tiles, getting into the corners of the sewing machine where the lint gathers, cleaning the tight seam of a jar lid before she sealed a shelf of dried apples for winter, getting the dust out of the carved back of a chair. A worn toothbrush reaches into corners nothing else in the drawer can, and it costs $0. The store sells you the same thing under a brand name for $4 in a plastic clamshell. Same brush, same bristles, same job. 17. The slivers of soap from every bar. Every soap sliver too small to lather got pressed into a wet ball on the edge of the sink, and once the ball was the size of a plum, it went into a small mason jar of hot water on the back porch. Overnight, the ball dissolved into a soft floor soap that scrubbed the kitchen linoleum for a whole week and never left a bar's worth of waste behind. Lydia Maria Child put it plain in 1832 in the American Frugal Housewife. hard soap for clothes, soft soap for floors. What Della understood is that the soft soap could come from the tail end of the hard bar, waiting in that specific tin along the porch shelf from number 25. Half a bar of soap goes down the drain of every American house. Della had the floor mopped with it instead. 16. The box of cornstarch on the baking shelf. Now here is number 16, and it is the one I promised you would beat a stain remover from the store. Della kept a small box of cornstarch on the baking shelf, and it was not just for pie thickening. A generous sprinkle over a fresh grease spot on wool or cotton pulls the grease clean out of the fibre in about 20 minutes. Brush it off and the spot is gone, without water and without heat. The USDA printed the method in Farmer's Bulletin number 1474 in 1926, and it is still on Gutenberg for anybody who wants to read the whole 80-page pamphlet. Same principle as the brown paper trick at number 27, and Della used them interchangeably, depending on which was closer to hand. $1.49 for a box of cornstarch. A dry clean ticket runs $15. You do the arithmetic. If the arithmetic on that one made you sit up, do me one small kindness and hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it keeps me coming back to your kitchen table every week. Now, the tin sitting right next to the cornstarch does something even the cornstarch cannot. 15. The tin of cream of tartar next to the cornstarch. Cream of tartar sat next to the cornstarch on Della's baking shelf, and it did two jobs. It stabilised the egg whites in her angel food cake, and 4 teaspoons in a pint of boiling water, and the article boiled in it, pulls a rust stain out of white cotton or linen without a drop of bleach in the house. USDA Farmer's Bulletin number 1474 again, same 1926 print. Della boiled my grandfather's white Sunday shirt in the cream of tartar bath the day he dropped a horseshoe on the wash line, and the rustring came out clean. That shirt would have gone to the rag bag in most houses. $1.80 for a shirt saved. That is not thrift, that is a raise. 14. The lemon rinds from every lemon. Not a lemon rind left Della's kitchen without doing 4 jobs first. Every rind went into a small enamel bowl on the sill, and once she had a bowlful, she put them to work. Rubbed with salt across the brass kettle, and the tarnish lifted. Squeezed with a little salt over a rust stain on a white apron, laid in the sun on the windowsill, and the stain faded before the sun set. Dropped into a jar of white vinegar with the zest of 3 of them, that became a lemon-scented cleaning solution for the counters. And the last of them, quartered and boiled in the kettle, cleaned the mineral scale out of the spout in one round. Same 1926 USDA bulletin again. The lemon does 4 jobs before it leaves the kitchen. The store bills you separately for each one. 13. The bottle of white vinegar in the cold pantry. A full bottle of white vinegar lived in the cold pantry, and when it got down to the last inch, Della never bought another. She tipped the last inch into her vinegar crock on the springhouse shelf, which is coming up at number 11, and washed the bottle out. The bottle itself became storage. Onion salt, dried peppercorns, rosemary. She never once bought a spice jar. And the vinegar itself ran the whole cleaning economy of the house. Brass with salt, windows with newspaper, mineral scale off the kettle, and a splash in the rinse cycle to soften the wash without a bottle of fabric softener. $2 for a gallon of white vinegar, and Della was still using the same gallon 3 months later. Her linen's softer than any fabric softener will ever give you. 12. The tablespoon of salt in the crock beside the stove. Here we are at number 12, and this is the one I promised you. Della kept a small clay crock of table salt on the shelf beside the stove. and she pulled from it 4 times a day. Salt in the cooking. Salt worked into a soft cloth for scouring a cast iron pan without stripping the seasoning. Salt sprinkled on the fresh grease spot for the same job as the cornstarch at number 16. And salt combined with a splash of white vinegar into a paste that scrubbed the brass kettle bright without a tin of brasso in the house. Lydia Maria Child printed the salt and vinegar brass trick in 1832 in the American Frugal Housewife, and Della was still doing it in 1962. 3 cents of the paste from Della's crock did the job of the $4 can from the store, and the brass came up brighter than the label ever promised. 3 cents beats $4, and it does it while you are already standing at the stove. 11. The last cup of cider at the bottom of the jug. The flat end of a cider jug never saw the drain either. Della topped up her vinegar crock with it, and the crock, sitting on the springhouse shelf under a square of cheesecloth, quietly turned 6 weeks of scraps into next month's vinegar. Old cider, flat beer from a Sunday cookout, the last splash of a wine bottle. A little of everything went in, and the crock fed itself. Della had a vinegar barrel running for 40 years and never once bought a bottle. Child worked out the arithmetic in 1832 and printed it plain. It is poor economy to buy vinegar by the gallon. $12 a year on white vinegar for a small household. Della ran the same crock for 40 years and paid for the starter jug once. 10. The wick ends and wax stubs at the bottom of the candle drawer. Every winter, Della melted the wax stubs from the summer candles in a tin can set inside a pot of simmering water on the stove. Poured the melted wax into clean jars around a fresh cotton wick and turned the drippings of the previous year into next winter's candles. She never bought a factory candle in her life. Wick ends from the old candles went into the new pour. Same wax, second life, at 1/5 of the price of a store candle. And the burn was cleaner because Della trimmed the wick to 1/4 of an inch before every light. Child worked out the same trick in 1832, and Della was still doing it in 1962. A jar candle runs $18 at the home goods store. Della's cost her about $2 each and never once dripped on the tablecloth. 9. The lemons going soft on the sill. The last lemons of the summer, the ones going soft on the sill, never went in the compost. They became lemon syrup. 2 cups of sugar and 1 cup of water reduced on the stove with the zest and juice of 3 lemons, cooled and strained and bottled in a clean glass jar set in the cold pantry. The bottle lasted the whole month, and every summer afternoon Della stirred 2 tablespoons into a glass of cold water for a lemonade the store cannot match. Child called the bottled kind a convenience tax in 1832, 50 cents a bottle for sugar, water and lemon, all of which every kitchen already has. 50 cents in 1832. $5 a bottle now. The 3 ingredients are still in your kitchen. 8. The cotton scraps and old curtains. Hold your grandmother's darning mushroom in your mind for a moment before we go on, because at number 8 we cross a line. We are moving from small things kept to whole cloths kept. The cotton scraps from Della's sewing basket and the retired kitchen curtains from the winter of 1954 went into a woven basket in the pantry closet, and that basket produced a fresh set of pot holders every year. 4-inch squares stitched into 6-inch pads, 2 layers thick, quilted flat with running stitches. Della never bought a pot holder. Lydia Maria Child printed the patchwork logic in 1832 and called it, in her own words, refusing to pay for what you already own. A set of 2 store pot holders runs $12. Della's ran her nothing and lasted a decade. The store sells you back your own curtains, cut into squares, for $12. You could not make it up. 7. The wool coats and pantaloons past mending. Once a wool coat had been mended in the elbow, and the elbow had thinned again, and the collar had been turned once, and there was no more give in the shoulders. Della cut the coat into strips, 1 inch wide and 1.5 inches wide, cutting with the grain. Sewed the strip ends together into 3 long strands and braided them tight. Coiled and laced with linen twine, the braid became a door rug for the back porch. Dark blues from my grandfather's Sunday coat, woven with the dark greens from her winter coat and the brown of a pair of my Uncle Ray's old pantaloons. Child wrote in 1832 that nothing was wasted, and gave the whole procedure right there in the book. Della's back porch had the rug to prove it. The store sells you a door rug for $45. Della made hers for the price of the twine. 6. The cotton socks with thin heels. Here is where the darning mushroom, the one I told you about at the very start, comes off the shelf. Every Tuesday evening, Della sat by the wood stove with the wooden mushroom in her lap, a spool of dark grey wool thread, and the 4 or 5 pairs of socks that had built up in the mending basket that week. She never let a sock leave the basket with a hole in it. Slip the mushroom into the sock, so the thin spot lay taut and smooth. Thread the darning needle with something no heavier than the sock itself, and weave a small patch of thread across the thin place before it became a hole. Helen Kinney and Anna Cooley printed the method in 1916 in a plain language textbook called Clothing and Health, and the whole textbook is on Gutenberg for anybody who wants to read it. Della had been doing it since her own mother taught her at the age of 9. $20 for a pair of good wool socks. 10 minutes with the mushroom, and the pair you own lasts another year. 5. The mending basket itself. The basket sat beside Della's chair by the wood stove, never in a drawer, never behind a cupboard, always in plain sight next to the light. That is the secret of the mending basket. Child said in 1832 that a stitch in time saves 9, and Della never let a garment go 3 weeks in the basket before it went back to the drawer. Tuesday evening was mending night, and by the end of it the basket was empty and the drawer was full again. I still keep the same basket beside my chair by the window, and I promise you, not a shirt has left this house needing replacement in 15 years. Every button, every loose seam, every thin place, every fraying cuff, caught and fixed before it became the reason the garment went to the rag bag. Fix small, and you never fix big. A blouse mended in 10 minutes is a blouse you did not have to buy for $45, and that arithmetic works every single week of the year. 4. The wool suit with a thinning elbow. USDA Miscellaneous Publication number 482, printed in 1943 and reissued in 1946, is a slim little pamphlet titled Mending Men's Suits, and it is the single most valuable 8-page document ever published by a federal government. It was written by Clarice Scott and Anne Haygood. Della had a copy tucked into the mending basket in a manila envelope, and every time my grandfather's Sunday suit started to thin at the elbow, she went to it. Tack a 2-inch square of matching wool inside the sleeve, darned from the outside with sewing thread 1 shade darker than the cloth. Work the stitches in line with the grain of the weave, both lengthwise and crosswise, and press with a damp cotton cloth on the wrong side. A suit re-elbowed at 40 is a suit you wear at 55. My grandfather wore his 1934 wedding suit to my confirmation in 1966, and the elbows were Della's. A wool suit today runs $600. 2 ounces of matching wool and an evening's careful darning, and the same suit walks the deacon down the aisle for another 10 years. 3. The trouser cuff worn at the lowest crease. Here we go, number 3. The tailor's trick I promised you at the top. Same USDA pamphlet, page 4. The lowest crease of a trouser cuff wears through first, every time. Instead of retiring the trousers, Della opened the cuff with a seam ripper, cut the trouser leg off exactly on the line of wear, folded a new cuff about a ½ inch narrower, basted it and stitched, pressed with a damp cotton cloth on the wrong side, and the trousers came out looking new. 2 evenings a year, and my grandfather's work trousers ran him 7 summers on a single pair. Scott and Haygood put the whole procedure in print in 1943, cost the taxpayer almost nothing, and any woman with a seam ripper could do it inside an hour. A tailor charges $30 for the same repair. Della charged herself the price of a spool of thread. The math has not changed since 1943. 2. The wool sweater with a hole in it. The scrap tin at number 30 pays off right here at number 2. When my grandfather's grey wool cardigan caught on a fence nail in the barn in the winter of 1958, the hole in the sleeve was the size of a nickel. Della cut a neat square around the damage, tacked a 2-inch square of fine cotton net behind it, and darned the hole with threads ravelled straight out of a spare piece of the same cardigan that had come home with the sweater in a small tissue paper packet 6 winters earlier. The patch disappeared into the weave. Every Woman's Encyclopedia printed the trick in 1910 in the section on darns and patches, and any careful hand can do it. A tissue paper packet you almost threw out, a hole the size of a nickel, and the sweater walks out of the mending basket looking like the day it came home from the store. 1. The cotton bed sheet's gone thin down the middle, and here we are at number 1. This is the habit that ends your linen bill. A cotton bed sheet wears from the middle out. 20 years of 2 people sleeping on it, and the middle strip has gone thin, but the 6 inches of good cloth on each outer edge is as strong as the day the sheet came off the loom. Every Woman's Encyclopedia printed the method in 1910 in the section called The Mending of House Linen, and Della had been doing it in her sleep since 1928. Hold the sheet up to the window and find the worn strip. Cut the sheet down the middle lengthwise, cutting away the whole thin centre. Turn the 2 good outer portions so the strong outer edges now meet at a new centre seam. Sew them together with a flat fell seam, hem the new outer edges and press. The sheet is now sound throughout, and it lasts another 5 years of honest use on the lower layer of a made bed. Della called it turning sheets sides to middle. My grandmother went through the Great Depression, 2 World Wars and a Dust Bowl on 12 sets of bed linens, and she bought new sheets 3 times in her whole married life. 3 times. That is not a rounding, that is the whole point of this video. A modern American household spends over $300 a year replacing bed linens that were not worn out, they were only worn thin in the middle. Another 5 years from a sheet you already owned, and you were about to put it in the bin. Coda. Della died in 1974, sitting in the same chair by the wood stove, with the darning mushroom on her lap. My grandfather kept it in the pocket of his shirt for the rest of his life. Now it sits on my kitchen sill, next to Della's button jar, and I still put it in my apron pocket every Tuesday evening at 7. You watched 30 items just now. Most of them are already in your house right this minute. The button off the shirt you wore Sunday, sitting on top of the dryer. The paper bag from the grocery run, still in the pantry. The lemon rind you threw out this morning. the wool socks with the thin heels in the top drawer of your dresser, the sheet on the lower layer of your linen closet, the one you were going to donate next week. They knew something on County Road 6 in 1932 that 100 years of clever marketing has trained a country to forget. What you throw out this week is worth money next Tuesday. And a house that knows the arithmetic never gets poor, no matter what happens to the dollar. Now here is what I want to hear from you in the comments. What is the one thing in your house you have mended instead of replaced? And how many years has it lasted? Tell me the object. Tell me the year you fixed it. Tell me whether it is still going. I read every one of them, and I am reading them for the next video on this channel. This is Granny Pearl, and I will leave the porch light on for you.